Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the seventh edition of the Voice of Glacier Foundation's Glacier Dialogue. My name is Anurag Malu. I'm the curator of Glacier Dialogue series and the founder of the Voice of Glaciers Foundation. It's a Section 8 nonprofit working on preparedness and institutional capacity in glacier dependent regions of India and Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Since February, earlier this year in 20, we started this Glacier Dialogues that is becoming a monthly space where we bring practitioners, we bring scientific experts, policy people, and community voices. All of them converge around the glacier crisis. Uh, all of these sessions, we try to bring in a different lens, but to the same fundamental questions that we try to discuss in all these dialogues. What happens when the glacier or the ice retreats, and what do we do about it? We have conducted 6 glacier dialogues covering glacier science, disaster risk, water systems, biodiversity, resilience, storytelling, and just in general, the future of the mountain communities. And so, on this seventh dialogue, I welcome you all. We have brought, disaster risk experts. We have brought scientists, glaciologists, filmmakers, journalists, storytellers, photographers, climbers, a very diverse community, those who have been joining this. And we have also focused these dialogues on, different places. We had a couple of events that focused on Uttarakhand. This time we brought more focus on Kashmir and the region. After this, we want to move to Eastern Himalayas in Northeast, slowly bringing attention to glaciers across the entire Hindu Kush Himalayan belt. And each of these sessions has truly deepened our understanding, of the glacier science, of community, of the risk, of the culture, the migration that is happening, the biodiversity that is in these alpine regions. And but today, we want to bring the focus and attention to the most vulnerable glacial landscapes of the beautiful, Himalayas, and that is to Kashmir. Kashmir is always known for its scenic beauty, but more than that, its glaciers are in serious trouble right now. The Kolahoi Glacier, that is known as the valley's largest glacier, that has lost nearly 30% of its area since the early 1990s. Its snout has retreated almost 900 meters. It's losing over a meter of ice mass every year. The Liddar River, which Kolhai feeds, has run below its average flow now, in last 18 to last 20 years. And agricultural land that is coming under this Liddar watershed has also declined by nearly 40% since 1980s. At least 6 glaciers in the Kashmir region have disappeared entirely since 1980s, and 4 of them after 2000. So this is not just a story of losing ice, but also about water, about agriculture, horticulture, hydropower, tourism, everything that depends on it, the livelihood of a lot of locals that depends on this. So the rivers that are fed through these glaciers, whether it is Jhelum or Indus, Sindh, they are also the lifelines of this. So today's dialogue, this evening's dialogue, is called The Last Snowline, The Changing Glaciers of Kashmir. And we have brought together the right people who can help us understand this. For this, I would like to welcome our first speaker. We have invited 3 speakers. We have Dr. Irfan Rashid, who is a glaciologist and associate professor at the Department of Geoinformatics at University of Kashmir. Another dear friend, Zishan Mushtaq, who is a climber alpinist, a skier and outdoor educator and a citizen scientist. We are hoping that Zishan will be oh yes, perfect timings. So Zishan has just joined. I will let him share what really happened. There was a last minute thing. He was not supposed to join, but Zishan is one of the few, professional ice climbers in Kashmir But let me talk to you quickly about Dr. Irfan Rashid, who is a glaciologist, as I mentioned, and teaching at the University of Kashmir. And his research has focused on the glacier dynamics, climate change impacts, remote sensing, and overall cryosphere related hazards in the Western Himalayas. And today, Dr. Rashid will open the dialogue with a scientific overview of the current state of Kashmir's glaciers, including trends in glacier retreat, emerging hazards, and what recent research tell us about the major glaciers in the region. And then Zishan, who is, as I mentioned, one of the few professional ice climbers in Kashmir. In 2023, he made the first ascent of Thajwas peak via the Great Kolahoi, by an Indian climber, a route that was last completed in 1945, and that also got him his name into the American Alpine Journal. He has also traveled extensively across, the Kashmir Valley. He has mapped over 100 alpine lakes across the valley, documented glacier retreat through photography, through his years of direct observation by being in the field, and he has founded Kashmir Climb in 2022 to build a community of climbers and outdoor practitioners. With that, I would invite our moderator, Athar Parvez, who is an award-winning environmental journalist, who has been reporting. He's a very well-regarded science and environmental journalist from Kashmir, who will moderate today's conversation, the question and answers that will happen after the presentations. But Athar has reported on climate change, water security, biodiversity, overall environmental degradation, and other Himalayan, ecosystem related challenges in international and national publications, whether it is Nature or Science or Reuters or Mongabe or just Wire, and he has participated or contributed in even the climate negotiations. So, given his deep understanding of both the science and this overall how community and public discourse that he has seen, it's our honor to have you, Athar, also to moderate this question and answers and conversation with Irfan and Zishan. And Zishan and Irfan, both of you, also welcome to the Glacier Dialogues. With that, Dr. Irfan, over to you. The floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Thank you, Anurag, for the detailed description of what I am doing or what other panelists are doing. It has perfectly set up the stage for my presentation, and more or less what you talked about, I'll give a scientific perspective of my work that I have been conducted at the University of conducting at the University of Kashmir. So I have kept this talk as non-technical as it can be. There are some technicalities, although, in this talk, but I have tried to minimize all the technical jargon to the best of my capabilities. And this is the first slide of my presentation, which is actually the thawing cryosphere of Kashmir Himalaya. By Kashmir Himalaya, I do not mean just Kashmir Valley as such, but the surrounding regions, the Chenab region, for example, or the Trans-Himalayan region of Zanskar and Ladakh also. So if you see this photograph, so I have specifically shown this photograph. This is the Pir Panjal range, which is the first range which Kashmir Valley encounters when these Indian summer monsoons get to the area. And this is a transition zone where you find the influence of western disturbances as well as summer monsoons in summer. And this is a picture of Pir Panjal range in South Kashmir, southern part of Pir Panjal range, on 30th January earlier this year. But if you look at, what you can see over here is the snow-clad mountains. But if you look at the last 25 years of meteorological history, the severest part of Chalai Kalan, or the severest part of winter that we call as Chalai Kalan, that lasts from 20th December to 30th of January, is the most severest part of Chalai Kalan, in the sense that Kashmir traditionally used to receive maximum snow precipitation during this season. And it is because of that snowfall that our snow glaciers or the permafrost reserves that we are to look in the last 2 or 3 decades of meteorological history. We have statistically significant rising temperatures prevalent over the region that are basically degrading these cryospheric reserves, be it snow, be it glaciers, or be it the permafrost. And if you look at the larger picture of Western Himalaya, the Jammu and Kashmir before 1947, you see this Karakoram region where you have a lot of white cover. Then you have parts in Zanskar somewhere in the middle of this slide, which are either perennial snow or glacier reserves that we have. And then we have this paramecium shaped bowl called Kashmir Valley, flanked by Pir Panjal on its west, and then on the east we call it Greater Himalayan mountain range of Kashmir. And within this bowl we have around 147 glaciers. And a research from our department, if you look at the numbers, statistics of those glaciers, we have 147 glaciers, but the area of glaciers had reduced by almost 28% over the last 4 or 5 decades at an annual rate of 0.76%, which is very high compared to many other parts of the Himalayan arc or the larger high mountain Asia, of which Kashmir is a part. And most of the times, what you see is that this change in the glacier area or this reduction in the mass, snout retreat, or area changes are ascribed to climatic reasons, be it the rising temperatures or be it the change in the form of precipitation driven by rising temperatures. So if you look at the climatological history, observed climatological history over Southeast Asia, you see that in the winters we have statistically significant, I mean, say in all the seasons we have temperature rise being observed over across the seasons across high mountain Asia. But if you specifically look at Jan, Feb, and March months, it is those months where Kashmir is to receive more snow. But at the same time, this region is experiencing over the last 70 years or so, over which we have this graded observation data available, that we have statistically significant increasing trends. And what it does is it does not only accelerate the melt of glaciers, but it has changed the form of precipitation and also the arrival of western disturbances over the region. It is not just the graded observations. If you look at all the IPCC climate model projections, they indicate that Kashmir by the end of this century can witness a temperature rise of 2.5 to 7.5 degrees centigrade. This will not only have impact on glaciers, but the biodiversity, the forests, the alpine lakes that we have, even the tourism. I'll come to that in the later part of my presentation. It will have it will dent every sector of economy on which Kashmir is dependent upon. We have a lot of uh, this economy under agriculture or related sectors, and this temperature increase and changing precipitation regimes will definitely bear the brunt of this changing climate. Again, if you look at another recent paper published in Climate Research, you see the temperature anomaly or the rate at which temperatures have been increasing over Kashmir region, which is showcased over here in this black rectangle at the center of the slide. So you see that the temperature rise over the last 5 decades, from 1970s till 2023, has been going up by 1.5 to 2.3 degrees centigrade per decade, which is very alarming. If you look at the larger climatological geological past of Earth or the regional Asian monsoon, you will have, but these are just 5 decades or even smaller than those time spans over which these temperature increases have happened. And this sets up a tone that, say we have these frozen ice masses called glaciers, one of which is Kolahoi Glacier. Kolahoi Glacier, as far as Kashmir Valley is concerned, is the biggest glacier of Kashmir Valley, but unfortunately it is the most fast retreating glacier of Kashmir Valley as well. If you look at the numbers of it, Kolahoi was covering an area of around 14 square kilometers in 1962. But if you look at the current area, it is almost 10 square kilometers, indicating a loss of almost 30%. And this glacier has been retreating at almost losing this area at almost 0.5% per annum, which is very high as compared to other glaciers in the Western Himalaya. And then it is not just Kolahoi, which is an isolated case. We have Kolahoi, we have Shishram, we have Thajwas, about maybe which Zishan will speak about. But there is another group of glaciers, we call it Gangabal group of glaciers, which are very small glaciers as compared to Kolahoi. But even if you look at the numbers from there, say the change detection data from there, you have this area also showing very eminent signs of retreat at 0.62% per annum, which is very high. And what it does is, it is not just that glaciers are retreating. These glaciers, they basically feed some of the major river systems. If you look at Jhelum river system or the Kashmir valley that I showcased previously, in the center of the valley you have Jhelum river draining through the valley. But Jhelum has almost 24 tributaries, and out of this tributary, Leather is one of the major right bank tributaries of Jhelum, and you have discharge data manifesting that the change that is happening to the Kolahoi Glacier is manifest in the discharge as well. If you look at discharge data that is available with Irrigation and Flood Control Department from 1972 up to now, I mean, say over here I am showcasing time series up to 2017 only. You have initially from 1972 to midst of 1990s, you have some very slight increase in the discharge, but after 1990s you have statistically significant decreasing discharge. If you look at the overall trend from 1970s, since when the observations are available, you have statistically significant depleting trends. But then you have a bump initially, you have a peak initially, and then you have a dip, very strong dip. What we speculate is that the critical mass available for melt, even initially, if you assume that glacier is like an ice slab and you put it in a positive temperature, you will have ice slab melting, and it will have some melt water coming out from it. The more amount of heat you apply to the system, you will have more discharge coming out of it, or the more melt water. But once the critical mass goes beyond a threshold, even if you apply more heat to the system, the discharges will not improve. And that is what is happening to not only Kolahoi Glacier, but all the glaciers which are there in Kashmir. And what it does is, we have plotted these land system changes. I mean, so the important land system changes which are directly linked to the glacier or snow fed basically sectors. So what we have done is, we have done a change direction of a land system in terms of the irrigated agriculture. By irrigated agriculture, by irrigating grown over here in the lower reaches of the Kashmir Valley. But then we have orchards, lot of orchards we have in Shupian, for example, or Baramulla. But what we observed in Leather Valley specifically, and in the rest of the Kashmir Valley also, is that the amount of irrigated agriculture, we are losing the area under irrigated agriculture. And then people are shifting from agriculture to apple orchards. I mean, say, this is not all climate change which is driving this change from irrigated rice paddies to less irrigation intense apple orchards. But I mean, say, there is a climate change impact to, or connotation to it also. We surveyed almost 105 villages in this area, and out of those 105 villages, 33% of the respondents in those villages said that they are converting their rice paddies, irrigation intensive rice paddies, to orchards because there is no water coming from the upstream. But then there were 66% respondents who said that they have converted their irrigated agriculture to apple orchards because it fetches them 10 times or 20 times more money. So it is economic, it has an economic connotation to it, but there is social, there is this climate reason to this conversion. And if you look at the built up specifically, why people in certain areas are not receiving the amount of water that they used to traditionally receive. I mean, say, there is some decline in the discharge, but at the same time, there is a lot of settlement or built up areas that have come up. And what they have done is, they have clogged some of the minor tributaries. It is not just true for Leather Valley. If you look at many areas, in the uptown area of Srinagar, or many rural areas in north of Kashmir, you will have many traditional drainages that have been taken over by concrete built up areas. And what it does is, if there is a village which was dependent on previously perennial river or previously perennial stream, that will cease to I mean, say, do this irrigated agriculture. And that is why people are converting, I mean, say, a substantial amount of 33% of villagers are converting from agriculture to orchards. And our statistics reveals that there is a 40% decrease in the agriculture, 175% increase in the orchards, and almost 500% increase in the built up area within this Kashmir Valley, within this Leather Valley. And similar statistics are hold true for many other areas, many other watersheds of Kashmir, which have been facing very similar basically changes. And what it does is, I mean, say, it does not mean just that people are converting from agriculture to orchards. I mean, so the indigenous capacity of Kashmir to produce rice paddies will go down if such scenario continues, and we will be dependent. I mean, say, there is a lot of rice that is coming from Punjab and neighboring states, but then the indigenous capacity of producing rice in Kashmir will in the long run be severely dented. And at the same time, we are seeing that there is an increase in the orchards, but there has been research from the medical colleges over here, Sikkim's and government medical colleges, College Srinagar, that have reported an increased incidence in the cancers, GIT cancers among the orchardists of Kashmir Valley. So at this point in time, this convergence seems economically viable, but 20 years down the line, we will have, Kashmir is still a cancerous, hotspot. But in light of these changes from agriculture to orchards, we will have these numbers blown up. In that sense, the horticulture department or the government needs to think. Whether they need to expand this horticulture sector from currently 10,000 crore economy to something like what they are speculating, 30,000 crore economy. Because if 20 years down the line, 2 decades or 3 decades down the line, if you have to invest all of this money in treating cancer patients, so obviously this is not something which will be recommended. I talked about snow in the first slide, but then snow is very important for social details of this paper, which is sustainability of winter tourism in the changing climate over Kashmir Himalaya. If you look at the last winter in the Chalai Kalan, all the famous tourist spots did not receive any snow. Even some people in the peak of winters, what I call Chalai Kalan, went to some alpine lakes and did take certain photographs from there. But what happened in a place like Gulmarg, which is a famous international ski tourism spot, people were there who are dependent on winter tourism were alarmed by the absence of snow in that part. No, hopefully it received some amount of snow, but it is not the traditional snow that Gulmarg used to get. So in that sense, whether promoting this winter tourism, ski tourism to areas like Bhadrava or neighboring Tosamadan, science has to inform policy making in that sense. And it is not just that snow gives us water and we have snow tourism associated with the region. Kashmir experienced two erratic snowfall events. In the first week of November in 2018 and 2019. In 2019, government estimated that the loss because of that erratic snowfall. Because this paper, this is a paper that we published in 2020, which was focused on impact of this erratic snowfall on the apple orchards of Kashmir. What we did was we tried to sample all the major areas where apple is being grown, and we tried to corroborate our analysis with the government estimates. And our analysis revealed that the region suffered, Kashmir Valley suffered losses, promulgating to something like 2,200 crores, which is highly colossal. What happened in the first week of November is there are a lot of varieties which are late harvest varieties, and they were still on the trees during the first week of November of 2018 and 2019. And because of this erratic snowfall, but in the main areas where apple is grown, touching something like 1 feet or half a feet in certain areas, basically uprooted some of the apple trees even. But then there was a lot of damage to the crop that was already available on the trees. And something on those lines, as policymakers, if there are any we need to basically look into, rather than promulgating or promoting horticulture as a sector which can take the state out of the economic mess. But then because of the changing climate, as I said, or as people know, that glaciers retreat. But there are over deepenings, what we call them technically glacier bed over deepenings. These are bowl shaped depressions in certain glaciers. And this is one of the glaciers called the Drangrung Glacier in Zanskar, neighboring Zanskar, which has developed this ice contact proglacial lake around 2005. And this glacial lake basically currently spans an area of 40 hectares. 1 hectare is a land parcel with a dimension of 100 by 100 meters. And if you have 40 such land parcels, it amounts to 40 hectares. And we can use satellite data to come up with the area. But the biggest problem with these glacial lakes is the scientific challenge is what is the amount of water volume contained within these lakes. And for that, Ministry of Earth Sciences was generous to give us this robotic eco sounding boat, which is fitted with a robotic eco sounder, and then a GNSS, which gives a precise location and depth of any area of the lake, so that we can compute these volumes. So why these volumes, ascertaining these volumes is important? Because in light of the changing climate and the glacier retreating scenario, these glacial lakes are thought to expand. Currently, if you look at the Indian Himalayan region, the highest risk of glacial lake outburst is in the eastern and central Himalayas. But researchers from the University of Zurich and University of Geneva have demonstrated that by the end of this century, because Kashmir will face larger magnitude of warming temperatures, these glacial lakes might evolve in great numbers in the Western Himalaya. And by the end of the century, the amount of risk or the hazard that is posed by these glacial lakes in the Western Himalaya will triple as compared to Eastern Himalaya. And under this project, we are going to ascertain bathymetry of around 20 lakes in Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh regions of the Western Himalaya. We did a pilot study of the lakes in Kashmir Valley, wherein we ascertained the glow susceptibility of around 150 lakes in Kashmir Valley, and we came up with a risk estimate which classified 5 lakes as being highly susceptible to glow. Highly susceptible to glow does not mean that there will be an immediate glow in these 5 specific conditions, 7 parameters that we used for categorizing glow susceptibility were to occur. For example, if there is a cloudburst, if there is a massive rock ice avalanche that will run out into the lake, it will trigger a flood wave that can result into glow that can affect downstream population and infrastructure. But then it is not just population and infrastructure that might get damaged. No, we have a lot of power projects in the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh also, and then Himachal Pradesh also. But then whether these hydropower development schemes, whether they have in their EIs, environmental impact assessments, taken care of these glacial lakes, which are ticking time bombs in the upstream. We have mapped around 40 increasing in the area since 1990s, and then we have identified around 14 hydropower projects which could be at risk. So does government have this kind of say data or analysis, whether if a lake in the upstream of Chenab bursts, which power projects will get affected and how much will get affected? Say we have learnings from Chamoli disaster, and we have learnings from this Sikkim disaster also, which we faced in 2023, and then earlier in Uttarakhand in Chorabari, where we lost countless lives, but then economic damage was of the order of trillions. So we need to take care of these aspects also. And one of the aspects, say that I or my group at the University of Kashmir is doing is strengthening in situ monitoring networks. We have a lot of data from the space. For every phenomenon, you have almost a satellite available. Say you can track clouds, you can track snow, you can track moisture or atmospheric circulation patterns. But then if you corroborate those results with the in situ observation or the field observations like IMD weather stations, do we have any glacier scale weather stations, weather data? So in that sense, what I have done as part of the ANRF Anusandhan National Research Foundation, previously called Science and Engineering Research Board, Department of Science and Technology, we have established a network of 30 temperature data loggers. And this year I have been given another project by ANRF in which I am going to expand this network to around 100 more monitoring stations so that we will have glacier scale metrology covered. It is not just the temperature sensors that we are installing. We are installing temperature sensors. We are installing automatic weather stations and time-lapse cameras for determining the amount of snowfall that each of these four mountain ranges receives. This is a typical example of the temperature sensor, which is used to track basically the frozen ground. If there's a change, can result into what they call debris flows or mud flows, which can have devastating impacts. So we have installed these temperature data loggers. This one is at Tanglangla pass from Leh, when somebody moves from Leh to Manali at an altitude of around 5,700 meters above sea level. And we have these temperature data loggers spanning from elevations 3,000 to 5,700 meters above the sea level across the region of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. And this is one of the demonstrations wherein we are, my team, including me, are setting up this temperature data logger for monitoring not only permafrost, but the local meteorology, about which nothing is almost known still. Having a lot of data about glaciers and glacier recession or the snow hydrology or permafrost, we still have lack of in situ data, and this data is immensely important not only for understanding the behavior of snow and glaciers, but also for hazard aspects in the Himalayan region. So, as part of furthering my initiatives on doing cutting edge research, we have set up a small super site in a village called Panikhar in Kargil district of Ladakh, wherein we are monitoring 6 glaciers in situ for in situ mass balance. This is a satellite image. You can estimate areas, but then we are setting up a couple of automatic weather stations. We are setting up a couple of discharge gauges. We are setting up temperature data loggers, lot of temperature data loggers along the altitudinal gradient, and then snow time lapse cameras to monitor snow water equivalent and snow depth in this region. And the aim is actually to know what amount of melt in the streams is coming from snow, permafrost, and glaciers. What is the individual contribution of snow, glaciers, and permafrost, and then also groundwater, and then to understand cryospheric atmospheric interactions, because we have these two circulation patterns, western disturbances and Indian summer monsoon, prevalent over these glaciated landscapes or prevalent over the northwestern Himalaya. And they bring a lot of pollutants in terms of black carbon, microplastics, and then also dust material from the Mediterranean or from the Indo-Gangetic plain. So we try to see what is the amount of contribution besides climate change of this atmospheric circulation patterns that they are inducing this melt. But then we are also investigating no goal of risk and goal of hazards in this region. And then important aspect of this study is all the instrumentation in this effort is being set up by the by involving local citizens over there. So the local citizens are actually the villagers. We have hired some villagers who are there, who help us in what you call capacity building. We help them in capacity. We build their capacity in terms of downloading the data, but then we give them a sense of feeling that this is not that it is just a scientific initiative that we are doing for this region, but it has immense societal applications in terms of the water supply and demand, but also in terms of the disaster risk reduction and the resilient infrastructure planning, the resilient infrastructure downstream. And we are doing certain education campaigns and outreach programs as part of this initiative. And this initiative is one such initiative which involves basically Indian Institute of Technology Madras, and then University of Kashmir, and then we have IIT Kharagpur. But the European partners, we have 3 prominent European partners besides 13 other minor partners, which is ETI Zurich Finnish Meteorological Institute and Norwegian Institute of University of Science and Technology, and we call it Cryoscope, cryospheric science concluding in new observations and productive exploitation. I'll end up my presentation with this slide that I have taken, or this image that I have, or a GIF that I have clicked in Trangtung Glacier, where we were basically doing this in situ bathymetry for knowing the potential lake volume, flood volume in case this lake outbursts. And this is a work in progress. I mean, it is not just my research. There are almost 10 people, 10 research scholars and master's students who have helped generate some amount of this knowledge, for which I am indebted to them. And it is due to the support of the state government and then Ministry of Earth Sciences and then Department of Science and Technology also. I am thankful to through which I have been able to carry this amount of work in the last 2 decades at University of Kashmir. That is all from my side.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Rashid. What a detailed and important presentation. I learned a lot myself. I had not much of idea about the glaciers in Kashmir, and especially you've touched on so many aspects, not just talking about glacier science, but talking about human cancer patients' health aspect, the hydropower, the gloves, the in situ monitoring, increasing more scientific monitoring infrastructure, the engagement of villagers, local communities, like the overall downstream impacts something like this will have, in the lives of people, those who live it every day, touching on more like other glaciers beyond Kolahoi, or like I never knew about Gangabal group of glaciers, small group of glaciers. So thank you for this, very enlightening presentation. With that, uh, is Zishan, are you here? Oh, he's just
Thank
joined.
you,
Dr.
Anurag, for
Irfan,
giving me this opportunity to share it.
can you stop your presentation? Or you are sharing his screen? Are you sharing his presentation? Yeah, or should I?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Zishan, are you here?
Yes, I am here, but just give me 1 second.
Sure, sure, Zishan. Let me open your presentation, or will you be sharing?
No, you should share my presentation.
Okay.
I just
I,
came, in a hurry. I
I
was.
know. Right. Let me share it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, I can see your screen.
Let me
Okay.
know whenever you want to start, and I will move to the next slide as you speak. Over to you, Zishan.
Hi everyone. This is Ishan here. Sorry. I had very immediate emergency. I was not expecting to be here. I just saved the life of one boy. He got drowned in the swimming pool, and we were in hospital, then in police station. You know, giving all the details what happened. So yeah, I am here.
Thank you,
One
Zishan.
second, 1 second.
Yeah, and still able to take out time for this. It all happened in within last 2 hours, and
Hi, sorry. The police is still calling me. I was just looking at picking up those calls. 1 second. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry because this is kind of emergency. I never expected I would be in.
don't worry, Zishan. If you are not able to, it's okay. Like if you can, 5 minutes. If you can just even summarize quickly, that is great. Otherwise, it's okay.
So yeah, I will just give you something brief about my observation of Kashmir mountains and the glaciers over the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Uh, when I started my journey, as I was someone who was more into exploration and adventure. I was chasing summits. I was chasing, remote valleys. But I didn't know sometime, some at some point of the year, these adventures will be uh, of that importance where जहाँ पे मुझे कुछ समथिंग that will change my life because जो मैं देखता पहाड़ों में वो मैं next time नहीं देखता था. So yeah, the kind of a way it was a journey of transformation from just exploring the mountains and to talk about them being a voice of these mountains. So our these years I have explored more than 100 alpine lakes, and most of them have grown in size or some have shrunk. And we have an area in Kashmir where we see a lot of alpine lakes are growing, and it is when the Irfan sir showed the first slide, it's exactly at that place where we have two alpine lakes that are growing in size, and there was a very high risk of the glow. And yeah, I remember last time we talked with Irfan sir when we decided to do an the awareness program in those villages. So when I started, why I simply, as I said, I simply wanted to explore the Kashmir mountains, but uh, over the time these journeys become the documentation. The image that you see here is in the Thajivas Valley. So it's actually a snow that has remained there for a very long time, and you see near my feet there is a ice, and above that it's compact snow. But recently I visited there and it was gone. This is a picture of 2 years. But when I recently visited this place, it was in I guess in October. But then after the next summer when I visited this place, it was gone because of the very high temperatures. So I realized that I realized that I just don't need to climb just mountains. I need to do something. And talk about them, and I use my social spaces where I continuously, as Anurag know, talk about these a lot. Also, after these exploration, I somehow started with the hiking across Kashmir mountains. Then I shifted to what we call the Trans Himalayas, and this is this one photograph from one of my explorations that we documented this place after more than a century. It was in 2023 when it got also published recently. When we started this exploration, I have to cover 1 point to 1 point do the traverse. But now after I came back home, I shared the pictures with Irfan sir. And as if you don't know, I work with them. And now we are going to do the research on this glacier exactly at this place this year, inshallah, in coming month. So this is called the Barmar Glacier. It is around 25 kilometers long, and its width at one place is 3 kilometers. This is what I have recorded myself when I walked on this glacier. Behind this is Noon and Kun. These photographs are so important because no one has seen them. No one has seen this glacier. It's very remote, and I feel proud that I documented them because it was for the first time documented in 1907 or 1909 by Dr. Arthur Neve and the workman couple, and that's what I read, and I followed the same path and the same route. Please, next one. Since Kashmir's most beautiful place and where you can see the glaciers very easily from the road is called Thajivas, and in this valley we have around 6 glaciers, and most of them, like 3 of them, are visible from the road. And on the left side there is one glacier. It's like a tongue coming down. It's called the Glacier 3. If I'm using the terminology of what climbers use, not what the scientists use. We have a climbing guidebook on in this mountain range published in 1945. So it's based on that terminology. The Glacier 3 of this valley is the largest among all. But if we see the current trend, it is, we have snout is retreating very faster rate. And I'm not sure is have anyone has been a researcher on the top of this glacier on the snout, because it's very inside the valley. It takes some 3 to 4 hours to hike around the boulders, and you have a steep climb at the end. But what I want to show you here is the Glacier 6 of this Thajwas. I have not seen personally any published record of or published photograph of this glacier. This is from the 2023, and where we have when we decided to do alpine climbing in this area. And uh, when we were following the route, we documented also this pass. It's very dear. It is from one valley to another valley. It's called the Glacier 6 Col, and from that we have this view of the Glacier 6 that is debris covered, and it's all under the debris is fallen from the peaks around this glacier. And continuously we were hearing the sound of rockfall. It is from that perspective of how debris is how the glaciers are getting covered by debris very fast. Next one. Yes, this is tourism is the livelihood of some areas here. Not every Kashmir is dependent on the tourism, but there are some areas where wholly and solely the community is dependent on the tourism, and one of them is Sonamurg. But it comes at very high cost. You can see the images from this year only, just from last month. This is the amount of rush that we see, and no one cares. The government is not doing anything. The development authority is not doing anything. The streams up there in the mountains that eventually comes into our homes, because this is the source of our water. Most of the Srinagar areas water canal, all this water, all this trash directly goes in the stream. That you see, we have people crossing on in the second image, crossing the log. If you pay a field visit, you will see the amount of trash in this valley currently. And these shopkeepers who are just selling the Maggie, they just what they do, they just burn everything, and it everything lands on the glacier nearby, because it is just below the glacier they are doing such activities. I talked a lot about this with some people whom I know, but it's not. No one is doing anything unless and until you have some you pressurize uh, politically. Next one. And yeah, this is my witness of what personally I have seen, because I just don't love adventure. I also love the literature about Kashmir. Before the 1947, in Sonnemarg, we have Aircrew Mountain Center that was operational, and it was for the British Air Force to train. And they were the first ones who made the ascent of these peaks in this valley, in the Thajos Valley, and they were also the first one who have published the guidebook. So this photograph on the left, I recently found from one of the library in USA. So I asked them for this picture, and they sent me a lot. And when I saw this one, I just compared it the same view which I captured from the Glacier 6 coal. We can see in August 1945 we have a glacier that is almost near the lake. But in on the picture on our right, we see how much the glacier has retreated, and it is captured in the same month, in the August month of August 1945 and August of 2024. Uh, this is how much our glaciers are retreating, and not only it has retreated, but it has also reduced in mass. And one important thing, there's a lake in our Kashmir, very famously known as Barfsar, that was recently discovered in 2018. But in that guidebook, when John Jackson described this lake, he called the second lake as the Barfsar, not the one we have at the that we have recently found on the top. That is not the Barfsar, but it was this lake whom he called Barfsar. But there is no snow or no ice, etc. in this lake presently. Just a crystal clear blue water. So yeah, next one. If we move some outside the Kashmir Valley, this was a photograph that I shared with Irfan sir in 2023, when I walked from all the way Kishtawar to Zanskar. And on that route, I found two alpine lakes. One of them is here. It's recently locally called the Hangu Lake. And on the left, we see how much it has grown from 2014 to 2020. And then when I shared this photograph with Irfan sir, at that time, it was also already in the list of high risk Glof Lake, but we had very few photographs, and so far there is no field report published. I'm sure there are people who are doing research on this lake, but nothing has been published yet. And I recently went to the same lake just last month in June, and it was very different. The snout थोड़ा और पीछे चला गया, and the walls जो इसके side पे they have become very steep, and it could be a trigger for glof, as I discussed with Irfan sir also, कि अगर इन पे study है तो ये इनका कितना खतरा है. तो yeah, we have the moraine beds, जो glacier जब पिघल गया है, we have the moraine beds, and that have left the steep walls, and it could be an easy trigger for the glof. Not only this, in the Kishtawar side, we have Mandiksar Lake. It is very remote, like it takes around 3 to 4 days. Then we have to enter in the side valley. There is no field photograph and nothing published yet. Irfan sir might know about it better, but it is much bigger than this Hangu Lake, and is continuously growing in size, and it's at a snout of the glacier. The other two lakes in the same valley is called the Mandiksar Nala. So one is called the Mandiksar Lake, and in the just north of the Mandiksar we have Faryabad lakes. So those two lakes are also recently formed, like in couple of decades, at the snout of the glacier, and much bigger than the Hangu Lake. So Abhi, I am showing the picture of the Hongu lakes, which I have personally documented and shared with the Irfan sir. But I'm planning to do. As a mountain guide and as I am not into science, but I am into guiding people on mountains, glaciers, because researchers I worked with them. They don't visit every glacier. Like in Harmukh, in Kashmir, we have Harmukh, the Irfan said the Gangbel group of glaciers. I believe, except Dr. Arthur Neve and Dr. Everest Neve, who were more into science and exploration, who have they have only published the field data from the Harmukh lakes. But as someone who has been on Harmukh, who has climbed Harmukh, who has seen the glacier condition right now, it is very important. We connect with the guides, with the explorers. The scientists should also collaborate, because it fills the gap between their expensive scientific expedition, because hum as a climber we do it in a very efficient way. We have the experience of going in the mountains and how we actually survive for those couple of days. But when a researcher here, we have people थोड़ा वो बेचारे उनका वो काम नहीं होता है, but it is a responsibility. मुझे लगता है कि guides and mountain climbers should collaborate with these researchers, ताकि वो हमारा जो field है ना इसमें expand हो जाए. We should more glaciers should come into research. Yeah, next one. So yeah, this is what I wanted to explain. We should expand the research domain, because in Kashmir we only have several glaciers जहाँ पे study हो रही है. The one is called the Kolahoi, and other is the Machoi. Hardly Harmukh भी research में आया है, but there is no field data. Everything that we have is based on the satellite imagery. Satellite imagery and field data, there is a lot of difference. I personally I explore the satellite imagery when I want to explore an area, but upon reaching the place and seeing the reality, it's very different. So something we need to work on, expanding the research domain, जहाँ पे more glaciers and छोटे छोटे जो बड़े बड़े glacier है कश्मीर में, उन पे हमें reach out करना चाहिए, and we should publish and we should more data on it. Uh, the second important thing that I am working with the Irfan sir and the group of people is we are training these researchers as अभी तो उनका मैं ही guide हूँ uh, who is taking them on glacier, ताकि we do the research, we conduct the research, we travel glacier safely. तो but it is something the responsibility of these students कि वो भी एक खुद को उस स्किलफुल बनाए, ताकि उनको फिर कभी हमारी जरूरत ना पड़े इस फील्ड में, इस कहीं किसी ग्लेशियर पे आने पे. बिकॉज as a mountain guy, I will tell my personal experience. Not always we are available for the research, for going to places. And अगर हम जो रिसर्च जब वही अगर ट्रेन हो जाए इसमें, तो इट वुड बी वेरी वंडरफुल टू हैव दोज पीपल, अनलाइक जैसे कि हमें बाकी एरियाज में है. And the other important thing is the partnership between the scientists and the local communities. It's again the same. अगर हम we will work together, we can do wonders in the exploration. हम उन जगहों पे जाते हैं जहाँ पे रिसर्चर्स के लिए जाना बहुत मुश्किल है. बट इफ वी गेट, अगर गाइड्स को ट्रेन किया जाए, दे कैन उनको फील्ड डेटा कलेक्ट करना कैसे आता है सिखाया जाए, तो इट वुड रियली मीन समथिंग जिससे हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं इसमें, इस फील्ड में. एंड थोड़ा बहुत दिस वाज फ्रॉम माय एंड एज माउंटेन गाइड.
Thank you so much, Zishan. Thank you. Like pura lived experience you have shared for you as a climber, as an alpinist, as a outdoor professional, and how do you support a lot of these scientific research work as a citizen scientist also. Kudos. This is the kind of climbing we need, in the world of mountaineering now, rather than people climbing for records. So thank you, Zishan, and thank you again for taking out time, especially when this last minute, the incident happened, and how you saved that person's life there, and then took him to the hospital, and then still dealing with the bureaucracy and the police part. So thank you for taking out time. Really appreciate it. With that, I would love to invite Athar, who has been here, listened to both the presentations, and who is a senior science and environmental, very well-respected journalist in Kashmir. Athar, over to you for the moderated question and answers for both of them, and then
Yeah, thank you, Anurag. Many thanks. And thank you, Dr. Irfan and Mr. Zishan. Both of you gave us, Dr. Irfan, you gave us a snapshot of the state of glaciers in Kashmir. And presentation of Zishan Saab quite stunning. I mean, that was, especially very interesting for me. I already know Dr. Irfan as a brilliant researcher, scientist, but it was a revelation for me how Zishan Saab is working. Very, very young, I should say, citizen scientist who is actually trying to contribute his bit for the research. Very he looks very excited to contribute his bit, which I'm sure I think Dr. Irfan will take up in future. So thank you for these running us through these presentations. So I was actually thinking of starting on a positive note. So I mean, you talked about, Dr. Irfan, you talked about the glaciers, how they are retreating. We have been kind of listening to such discourse. I mean, such conversations have been going on for a while, and it's always like there's not any positive, especially in terms of the health of glaciers. There's not much positive news coming up. But I was actually I was recalled, I was reminded of this what is called in science as Karakoram anomaly. So there is this theory, or maybe scientists have witnessed it, that there are some, most of the glaciers in Karakoram region which are in fact expanding rather than shrinking. So I was thinking, do we have at least some glaciers in Kashmir region, in Kashmir Himalayas, which are health-wise doing quite okay, or maybe who knows, some of them might be adding moss to them. I mean, but I really wanted to hear from you, Dr. Irfan, if there is any positive news. Can we begin with some positive news? Over to you.
I mean, this is a very valid question. There is this Karakoram anomaly of around 5,000 glaciers, some of which have been reported to be stable over the last 5 decades or so. But largely, if you look at the Hindu Kush Himalayan region and Kashmir also, I mean, say we do not have any such glaciers which are stable. There are some stable glaciers in Chenab Basin, which are very big glaciers, but they are, I mean, say we have what we call clean ice glaciers and debris covered glaciers. For example, the glacier that I showed, Kolahoi, you might have seen, or Drangtung Glacier that I showed. These are relatively clean ice glaciers. But then we have debris covered tongues in certain glaciers, and we classify them as debris covered glaciers. They do not retreat at such a huge pace as compared to the cleaner ice ones that we have. But then there are glaciers, I mean, so in Chenab, which do not show very high magnitude of rate of change. For example, if you look at the rate of change in Kashmir glaciers, it ranges from something like 0.4% to 0.7%. But if you look at the neighboring Chenab region, in which we have very huge glaciers, I mean, so much bigger than Kolahoi, the Prankton Glacier that Zishan showcased, we might go to Prankton Glacier early next year for some snow coring experiment. I mean, they are very huge glaciers, and they do not, I mean, so retreat at the same pace as do we see in Kashmir glaciers. But as far as the 147 glaciers or 140 glaciers that we have in Kashmir, most of them are showing imminent signs of very imminent and significant signs of retreat. Having said that, I mean, there is a concept in Ladakh, I mean, say by somebody called Sonam Wangchuk, and then it originated from Chiwang Norful, who is called the Glacierman of Ladakh. And then Sonam Wangchuk took it to next level. There is this NGO called Acres of Ice, who are building ice stupas in areas where there has been this glacier shrinkage, or glaciers have totally gone in the upstream area. That is some kind of intervention that people can think about. It is not, I mean, say we are stopping climate change. It is actually a mitigation measure that they are doing. And then I was part of some summer school last year. there is a scientist called John Moore, who is an aerosol scientist in United States. Who he works at Scripps Institute of Oceanography. And what he suggests is that we do sulfate aerosol injection in the stratosphere, which might reduce the incoming solar radiation. So that these glaciers could be kind of, the glacier melt could be somehow retarded or stopped for the time being. But scientific community, especially glaciologists, are strictly against it, because doing that will open up a new Pandora box about which we do not know as far as climate glacier feedbacks are concerned. Having said that, we at the University of Kashmir, or the Indian glaciological community largely, or the glaciological community in Southeast Asia, are trying to better understand and characterize these glaciers, not just through satellite remote sensing, as Zishan was saying, but we have established what we call benchmark sites. Kolahoi is a benchmark site. This Panikhar is a super site, what we call. It's a benchmark, but with a lot of instrumentation. But then at the University of Kashmir, we have Center for Excellence managed by Professor Shakil Ahmed Rumshu, who monitor another 5 or 6 glaciers in various parts of Ladakh, which is very important. That said, I'll not say that we do not need to research Gangabal or some glaciers in Romshi Nala or somewhere around Chenab. Say it all depends on funding. But then these are very important scientific questions that we need to address, and these are very pertinent for societal well-being also.
Thank you, Dr. Irfan. You talked about the artificial glaciers in Ladakh. That actually reminds me about our snowless winters, which has become quite a norm for the past few years.
True.
And when we say that, I'm also reminded of the fact that our Chief Minister Omar Abdullah early this winter actually talked about, he's in fact actively pursuing development of artificial snow infrastructure. He was actually referring to the skiing in Gulmarg. He was actually as the chief guest there, I think, when he actually made that statement that we need to think about creating artificial snow for the skiing to occur in future continuously without any disruptions. So that was his statement. In fact, which he has, I think, followed up also with some sort of direction. And I actually read a news sometime back that the government has actually, invited the tenders for that kind of, project. So why I'm actually, mentioning it is because you also made a remark during your presentation that there is a need for science. There is for science to, inform policy. Do you think that kind of, pitch from the Chief Minister himself, makes some scientific sense to you? Is that something which can be, taken forward, which can be, thought about, or maybe, practically, which can be practically done? So do you think as a scientist that is something to be done?
I think these are kind of best practices that people need to look into or invest into, at least do some cost benefit analysis. I visited Austrian Alps. They call it Orzel Alps, between border of Australia and Italy. And I went to a glacier as part of some training program, and I could see 4 snow cannons right from the accumulation zone top of the glacier up to the snout. Say it was a ski resort there. Say on the fringes of the glacier, there's a skiing track. But they maintain the skiing track through these snow cannons. So in that sense, say having those snow cannons or some kind of intervention to preserve these areas, for example, preserve the glacier mass or have the snow in the winter so that these winter sports activities are not affected, needs a scientific cost benefit analysis. But yes, it is a good thing to invest at least in a small microcosm of Gulmarg Valley. Similarly, people in Switzerland have covered very small glaciers with white blankets, because you have a lot of dust loading on these Saharan dust loading on these glaciers, which reduces the albedo. And what they have done for some of the glaciers in Swiss Alps and French Alps, they have experimented over small glaciers. They have covered it entirely throughout the hydrological year. After the precipitation, they have blanketed this, and they have seen substantial reduction. But if you look at the Himalayan scale or the Jammu and Kashmir scale, where you have more than 12,000 glaciers, small and large, say each glacier with an average area of 1 square kilometer, but then you have glaciers like Siachen, you have Brankton Glacier or Parkachi Glacier, which are very huge ones. I mean, say doing those sort of interventions at such a scale needs a lot of pumping of money, and I am skeptic at this point in time. But certainly an area where scientific community and governments need to forge hands together to see how beneficial it is.
Okay. So another question which I had in mind is like when we talk of the glaciers in Kashmir, many people think of them as some kind of distant, ice fields.
Right.
So can it be, connected with the lived experiences, with what kind of changes people are witnessing? Are they really, kind of interested in these kind of conversations when you go to these mountain areas, when you talk to the people, what kind of experiences they share? And even in the valleys, I mean, when you talk to people, do you really think that people, I mean, can we use the phrase, does it really cut ice with the people when you talk about the ice fields?
I mean, not many times people are more or less familiar with glaciers and snow. But then if you look at emerging hazards, for example, what we call glacial lake outburst floods, Kashmir has not had experienced any glacial lake outburst flood before 2014. I mean, say Jammu and Kashmir, including Ladakh. But then in 2014, we had a village called Gya village in Ladakh, 70 kilometers from Leh, towards Leh Manali National Highway, which experienced the first glacial lake outburst flood. And since then, there have been 3 incidents of glacial lake outburst in that region. We do not have had any incidents of glacial lake outburst, reported incidents of glacial lake outburst flood. Although in 2014, during 2014 floods, people in South Kashmir said that some dam has bursted or there has been some cloud burst. It was a mixed opinion. But when we go to common people, common villagers, I mean, say they are more or less familiar with snow, but they do not know much about glaciers, and it sometimes becomes hard to connect. But then what we do is, over the course of time, we make several visits, show them certain videos, show them certain satellite images so that they become familiar, because a lot of those communities living in the foothills during the winters move up with their livestock and to the higher reaches, and they have that lived experience of living close to glaciers and then seeing the extreme weather also in those areas. So that is how we try to build up, but there is a long way to go as far as capacity building at the village level, as far as cryospheric reserves is concerned. I mean, you have a lot of people in the governments also knowing most of things about snow and glaciers, but I believe many people do not know what permafrost is. And when you talk to somebody in the state government that we have a lot of permafrost in Pir Panjal, no, it comes as a totally new term for them, rocket science, that is permafrost really existing? What is permafrost? Is it that we have so much of perennially frozen ground? So we need to do a lot of capacity building in that sense. And Cryospoke project in Panikar is first of such interventions in which we are going to build the capacity of the entire village, not only in terms of what snow and glaciers and helping us in carrying out these measurements, but also knowing what science is being done and how is it beneficial for those societies. Similarly, there's a village in Kulgam called Asthal village, which is located in the midst of Vishav river. I mean, say it has faced those meteorological floods every now and then, as and when Kashmir has experienced it. But in the upstream of this Asthal village, we have 2 famous lakes. Alpinists are very proud about going, which is Chirsara and Bramsar. But if you look at the upstream of Chirsara and Bramsar, we have 2 ice contact proglacial lakes, which have some Gulf hazard associated with them. And God forbid, if any one of them basically results into an outburst, it may destabilize the downstream lake and result into cascading impacts. And such kind of capacity building is really needed. We are doing 2 workshops, one in Ganderbal in that sense, and then another in Kulgam later this year as part of MOS project to build the capacity of not only government officials, but also the locals who are at the risk of these outburst floods.
Thank you, Dr. Irfan. So I'm sure with us. So if he is still with us, Anurag, is Zishan Saab still with us?
Zishan is with us, and I
Yeah.
want
Yes,
to
yes, I am
reiterate
here.
before you
Okay.
pose certain questions to him. I mean, he has been part of so many expeditions with us to Machoi Glacier, to Panikhar. We are contemplating to go to Brampton Glacier this year, and then some other glacier in the vicinity. So his inputs have been immensely helpful because he knows the terrain in and out as compared to us. I mean, say we have visited some of the glaciers, but he has a lot more exposure in terms of the risks and no potential risks and the logistics that are required for undertaking such campaigns.
I'm glad that you are acknowledging what kind of role Zishan Saab and his colleagues are playing. I am actually, last year, one of the scientists, one of the field biologists, one of the renowned field biologists in India told me that when they were working in Ladakh on, this snow leopard, there was this research project going on about snow leopard. He told me how the local communities helped the scientists, you know, installing the camera traps, deploying the camera traps, how important were their inputs and their expertise and their local knowledge. So they knew that where the snow leopards, actually where they are sighted most often. So they knew that that's the kind of knowledge they have utilized, and also they knew how to, navigate those rugged terrains, how to travel in those remote parts of the Ladakh region. So they were quite forthcoming with their help as far as helping the scientists is concerned. So this is how probably Zishan Saab and his friends are helping you, which is quite good. So that
Very
brings me to the collaboration and research. So do you think, I mean, it is something which can be done on a larger scale? Like, I mean, you have been quite fortunate to have a friend in Zishan Saab. So you have struck a chord with him and you are working together. That's quite brilliant. But do you think that this can be scaled up in our region so that such collaborations can become quite, widespread? Or maybe at least they can happen more often.
I mean, definitely this needs to be scaled up, and funding agencies are very generous in that sense. Whenever we write a project and then say this has a community intervention component, they are very happy to not cut any budget on the community intervention budget. Now, I mean, it is not just Zishan who's accompanying us. I mean, say the villagers in Panikhar or the villagers in Adu, when we go to Kolahoi Glacier, do accompany us for those field visits. And I mean, I have glaciologists across the length and breadth of Himalayas who are working in the Indian Himalayan region or other sites, I mean, say across the boundaries also, who usually take help of locals and then alpinists also like Zishan to basically go to the glacier and carry out intense scientific observations. And definitely, I mean, I was not doing it initially. Probably I was not in that frame of mind of doing or writing those projects. But whenever I write a project, I always make it a point from the last 3 or 4 years that we need to involve local communities as part of the activities that we are carrying in the upstream catchments. That only, I mean, say that not only helps us to undertake field work very meticulously, but also safeguards the instrumentation that we install or set up there for some kind of observations, cryospheric observations, or glacial hydrological observations.
Okay, so can I ask a question to Zishan Saab? Zishan Saab, as they say, seeing is believing. So you often travel to those remote mountain ranges, uh, and you have been witnessing again and again those landscapes. So are there any? You told us what is happening and what you are witnessing. That was kind of a snapshot which you gave. But are there any dramatic changes which are in particular or which in particular stayed with you? So can you share some more insights with us?
I talk about the same area, the Sonmarg. There we have a highest alpine lake of Kashmir. It's called Barafsar. It stands at 4,600-meter altitude. But if we compare its size, what it was in 2018 when it was brought into public domain by some people, and what it is right now, you will see the lake. By the back then, it was submerged in the snow. It was not a proper glacier. It was a mix of a glacier and snow and the ice. But now, currently, there is no ice and snow, and it's just the lake embedded in the rock. And also in 2018, when we also see the satellite imagery and the photographs, there was a one small water body just near that lake. But coming back to this year in 2026, there are three water bodies right now at this very close to that lake, and all that water comes into the village called Sarbal, which is the last village of Kashmir, just below before the Zojila. So we have seen how lakes are growing in size, how new lakes are forming, how glaciers are melting. Another example of is Thajwas Glacier, which is like when you go to Sonmarg, you see the one hanging glacier, which is continuously shrinking. There, it has an ice cave. I have been there. I have camped on that glacier. It has an ice cave, but that ice cave is also getting no, it's breaking because of the heat and because of the lot of dust that glacier has. I remember when I camped on the glacier 2023, when I climbed the Thajwas Peak, I was pitching my tent and I was seeing a lot of dust on the glacier surface. And पानी के लिए मुझे पहले उसको साफ करना पड़ा, then I had to melt the ice. These are some of the changes that I am seeing personally.
Okay, so are those changes, impacting, leave any impact on mountaineering or skiing? So, what kind of impacts you are witnessing? Is there
I
something quite striking which you want to share?
Yeah, exactly. You know what happens? We climb a route and we climb it via a particular route. So in Thajibus, that route is a Collier. It is a snow-covered gully, and there are many ways to reach a summit. But something that excites us to do is very technical and very where we have to use our skills. So जो जहाँ से मैं चढ़ा था last time, it was through a great Collier, and it was only the second time कोई उस वहाँ से ऊपर चढ़ा है documented. But what we are seeing with rising temperature, the Collier में जो snow है ना वो melt हो रहा है, and it no more becomes accessible. You cannot climb it. आपको वहां से कंटिन्यूसली रॉक फॉल आता रहता है स्नो की वजह से। जो रॉक आइस में फंसा था, जो आइस में जो रॉक फंसा था वो पिघलता है एंड कंटिन्यूसली रॉक फॉल होता है। सेम इज द केस विद द हरमुक। We climbed Harmuk in 2023 and we opened a new route. For that, हमें उस पे national award भी मिला when we applied for that. So I remember we were climbing at around sunrise, 6 बजे थे, and it was a gully. As soon as the sun came up, जो आइस मेल्ट हो गया ना, एंड सीधा एक ट्रक पत्थर का नीचे आया। So this is how with temperature, with melting, the mountains are changing, because जो rock ice में जो rock जमा होता है ना, it melts and then it changes the landscape continuously. Recently, I was in Kishtawar near the Hangu Lake. Same case there. Continuous rock fall when sunlight hits an area. एक पूरे एरिया का टेरेन ही चेंज होता है when a rock is falling from thousands of meters ऊपर से. Because Kishtawar has that beauty, it has very steep mountains, and valley floor sits at 3,000 meters, but the height of the mountains is 6,000 meters. So rock comes down from 6,000 meters down to the 3,000 meters. सो वो तो पूरा लैंडस्केप भी चेंज करता है।
Great. So let us go back to the collaboration part. So when it comes to field investigation, do you think, I mean, there are some observations which are particularly most valuable for the scientists, which you can, help them with? I mean, which you can share with them later. What you are observing, maybe scientists themselves might not be able to observe themselves. Are there any, observations which you think, I mean, the people like you, they observe, they see, but scientists somehow maybe since they are not going that often to these regions, so they can kind of benefit from those observations from you.
Yeah, this is when we travel on glaciers, we see a lot of things. We see the surface of the glacier, we see a lot of streams, pro glacier streams on the glacier. We see a lot of black holes with the black thing. This is called a crankonite, something the term is, I don't remember. तो वैसे holes दिखते हैं हम, which increases the melt of glacier. So as observations, I keep on documenting, I keep on sending to Irfan sir. कि सर दिस ग्लेशियर पे ऐसी स्ट्रीम है, वी हैव ग्लेशियर मिल्स, एक स्ट्रीम आती है एंड एक साइक्लोन की तरह वो नीचे चली जाती है इसमें ग्लेशियर में. ऐसे ऐसी डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ फीचर्स है जो I try to document, I try to capture and then share my observations with my Irfan sir वगैरह and other group, ताकि we can somehow try to research those areas. Similarly, अभी जो हम बात करें ब्रंगटन ग्लेशियर और बर्मा ग्लेशियर, तो when I explored this and I showed इरफान सर, किस्मान सर देखिए ऐसा ही ग्लेशियर ऊपर है. I directly एक क्या होता है ग्लेशियर को, ग्लेशियर के एक्यूमुलेशन जोन पे यू हैव टू क्रॉस द स्नाउट और आपको वहां पे जाना पड़ेगा, यू हैव टू क्रॉस स्टीप फॉल्स. बट इस बर्मान ग्लेशियर और ब्रैंकटन ग्लेशियर, इसमें एक है कि देयर इज अ पास which hardly people knew about, and in 2 years before I crossed that pass and उसने मुझे डायरेक्ट ग्लेशियर जहाँ पे बनता है वहां पे छोड़ा. It's around at 5,000 meters, and it is very easy. No technical skills required. But you just need a will and the grit to overcome the altitude, and you are at the accumulation zone of the glacier. And we were talking about that. जिस पे हम research करने वाले हैं. तो yeah, this is what I observe and I tell the researchers कि ऐसा कर सकते हैं, ऐसा कर सकते हैं. We can do this. I found this here. We can reach here. I can accompany you. ऐसा ऐसा. These things are in my mind when I go on exploratory trips.
Thank you. So, Zishan Sahab, you also highlighted the importance of training of students or young researchers, and also the training of guides. You said that both these groups or cohorts can be kind of trained to so that they can help in proper research, and that can actually benefit the scientists as well as the whosoever is conducting or carrying out research. So what kind of training do you think is needed for the students, and what kind of training is needed for the guides or skiers or those who go to the mountains?
I will tell my perspective. When I went with the team last year on the Machui Glacier, we did a sampling where we collected, where we dig out some pits and collected the samples of snow at different layers at different depths. I didn't know this before. मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि इस कैसे करना है. That is what I learned when I was with the researchers. Now मुझे पता है. Now I know if they want some samples from some particular area, I know how to dig a pit, how to collect the samples, and कैसे करना है sample को collect, and how much sample का कितना weight, इतना मुझे समझ आया. Same is the case with the scientists. To travel on glaciers, आपको खाली चलना नहीं है. You have to be very careful of the crevasses, and it can be a life threatening. If you fell in a crevasse, आप and if you don't know how to come back, और अगर आपकी टीम को नहीं पता है how to do the rescue, so you will die. Like I will tell the example of, if I am a wilderness first aid and certified person, I know the CPR, I know the how to deal with the trauma and emergencies in the mountains. I was there. I know how to do the CPR. वहाँ पे almost 10-15 लोग थे, सब देख रहे थे. I did the CPR and I saved his life. Just 2 घंटे की पहले की बात है. So same is the case with these scientists. If they don't know how to rescue, if someone falls into crevasse, तो वो तो उधर hypothermia से मर जाएगा. And they
So
will
when
also
you
put
are
their life in risk, because glacier पे जब हम चलते हैं, we are connected with the rope. So
so
अगर
you
एक बंदा नीचे चला जाता है तो whole team will go back in the crevasse. नीचे जाएगी सब crevasse में. So those skills हमें सीखनी चाहिए researchers को, and also some climbing skills where we have to climb some steep sections. And that's why I am working with the university department as an ice climber, as who has an experience of climbing vertical terrains. So I am wholly responsible for the safety of the students, ताकि उन्हें हम उस पॉइंट पे ले जाए जहाँ पर जो पॉइंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है, जहाँ पे हमें सैंपल्स उठाने हैं. So yeah, this is
great. So when you were telling us about getting trapped in a crevasse, Anurag had a large, he had a big smile on his face. He was like, been there, done that.
Yeah,
So,
I know that.
I don't wish that for anyone.
but you are fortunately very successful. You successfully did that. So, I mean, that's very fantastic. That's quite fantastic. So, do we have more time
Yeah,
to ask questions?
I think there are a lot of questions from the on the chat from audience. So let's
So, can you take that forward?
yeah. I think there is a question from Varsha. Varsha has been a speaker in one of the second, I think, Glacier Dialogue. She's a journalist in Uttarakhand. Can you tell us about how the flora and fauna are affected by these changes? Are we documenting it?
I mean, thank you, Varsha, for asking it. Although I am not working on these aspects, but no, there is a lot of research that is going on the alpine or these glacier-related flora and fauna. I mean, say we have what Zishan was referring to earlier, these black sediment-filled depressions on the glaciers called cryconite holes, in which we have a lot of fungal biodiversity and then arthropod biodiversity also. And in light of changing climate in the European Alps and Rockies and Andes, we have seen a lot of research has been done, but in the Indian Himalayan region, it is still a far cry. But yes, worth investigating. But then, as a physical glaciologist, I need support from biologists to better understand and characterize it. So I am also already in touch with some people in the zoology and botany department of our university, very good researchers. But as of now, there is no ice breaking as far as this thing is concerned. But definitely, an area which needs to be investigated and has a lot of scientific merit in pursuing.
And also the last session, the Glacier Dialogue was focused on biodiversity, where we had, speakers from IUCN and WWF. And so they have done some work, but not directly, they mentioned about the journey once the glaciers melt and how
Right.
long it is for the new biodiversity to emerge there. So they've spoken briefly about it, which I will share the link with you of the last dialogue with you, Varsha. But happy to
And
also,
also,
yeah,
yeah, and
yes,
also Anurag, Dr. Irfan's colleague in the botany department, Dr. Anzar Khoru, he has done a lot of research on, alpine regions,
Alpine.
especially on the species, how they are, behaving when it comes to these changes, climatic changes. So he has recorded some changes. I think I would, suggest Varsha to maybe Google his name, Anzar Khoru. She will get a lot of details about the changes happening in the alpine regions in terms of how species are behaving.
maybe we can organize a future dialogue around it.
Yeah, that will be great. Yeah.
Also, there is another question from Mohammed Umair. Irfan, sir, for you. Much of the discussion around glacier focuses on monitoring and observing their changes. However, what about preparing for a future in which many glaciers have disappeared or are significantly reduced? What policies, adaptation strategies, and long term planning should governments and institutions start implementing now to address the environmental, social, and water resource challenges with little or no glaciers left? Great question,
No,
Mom.
very pertinent question. So I like to tell Umair and the audience also. I mean, say the glaciological research in India started after this famous IPCC report. I mean, say which was later acknowledged as IPCC blunder, that all the Himalayan glaciers will vanish by 2035. But then DST at that point in time got activated and it basically developed these calls National Mission on Himalayan Studies, NIMSHI, NMHS, and so on and so forth. And it is because of that, I mean, say we have a lot of glaciological groups that have developed since then across the length and breadth of India. But having said that, how many glaciers are we monitoring? Out of 60,000 glaciers that are there in the Himalayan arc, we are monitoring merely 40 glaciers. And is that statistically significant? Is that knowledge enough? We know that these glaciers are retreating, these glaciers are melting, these glaciers are losing mass, their fronts are going back, except for some in the Karakoram. But then, do we have real knowledge about each and individual glacier, in situ observations about each and individual glacier? At least, if not individual glacier, at least climate zone wise, I mean, say categorization of these glaciers. We do not, we are still far off that. And in that sense, this science is still in the process of doing that. But at the same time, I'll not budge away by this question that what needs to be done. Partly I answered it in one of my questions that geoengineering or solar geoengineering is one of the concepts, or ice stupas. But then people who are engineers can really suggest us what other geoengineering measures can be kind of taken up so that some of these glaciers could be thought, and I mean say could be saved. And it cannot happen, I mean say, just by a mere discussion. I mean say people who are interested in safeguarding the glaciers across the disciplines, whether it is zoology, botany, earth sciences, geoinformatics, people who are doing alpine trekking and alpinism, and then people who are civil engineers or engineers by profession, they need to sit on the common table and have some convergence area. And I am sure that so a series of deliberations and discussions, things will come up. And I had not heard about solar geoengineering maybe 10 years back, but now lot of glaciologists, whether they are criticizing it or not, I mean they are talking about this kind of a phenomenon, or ice stupas, for example, in that sense. So we need to think about those solutions also. I mean, as scientists, if I am a physical glaciologist, my job is to monitor glaciers and report these findings to the governments or to the funding agency which has funded this project. But at the same time, my societal responsibility is that I need to find like-minded people who have interest in glaciology, and can we come up with some kind of intervention, a small scale intervention, as I said, Atar Saab, no, of snow cannons, for example, implementing snow cannons in, say, for example, Gulmarg, and doing a cost benefit analysis over the course of 4 or 5 years, and then seeing whether it helps it or not. But the larger question is, are we able to stop climate change? And again, it comes to those international forums wherein we have these conference of parties and many conferences going on to reduce those or curb those emissions. I mean, US has its stake that if you look from a perspective of a US citizen, they will say that India and China are the biggest polluters as far as black carbon emissions are concerned. But then if you look at Indian take or Chinese take, they will say that US is the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases in that sense. And somehow we need to come on the common table to resolve these. And I mean, carbon dioxide molecule that is released as of now will last another 140 years. I mean, say it will have impacts. So if we do not act now, I fear, I mean, say not immediately, but maybe by the end of this century, not only the cryosphere related hazards, but water security will be a big problem in the upper Indus Basin or the two other bigger river systems that we have, Ganges and Brahmaputra also.
Thank you, Dr. Irfan. Athar, I have a question for you actually, because you just mentioned about the global climate negotiations, and you have covered climate negotiations in Copenhagen and Paris, So when you have seen those negotiations there, what gaps do you see between the international discourse and then the ground reality in India and in Kashmir in general? Maybe some of
Yeah,
your
those
yeah.
actually those negotiations are mostly centered around the political kind of positioning of the countries. So those negotiations, they most often happen around those kind of parameters. The political kind of positioning of the country is more important than what is happening in the country, what our community is doing. I mean, of course, the communities, they actually connect what is happening to the communities. Every country wants to highlight how their communities, how their people are suffering. So that's already there. But most often it kind of boils down to the grouping of nations. Like we say the G77, that's a large group which actually keeps kind of pushing forward the agenda of the developing countries. So those and then there are least developed countries. There are so many groupings which are there. So these negotiations often happen on those fronts. And then there are, I mean, the protests also keep happening there. There are many groups make it to those forums, and then try to kind of highlight their demands, and kind of I mean kind of protest what they are not actually, what they don't like in terms of how their governments or how the global community is dealing with the climate change. So that's, I mean, those negotiations are on a different, on an entirely different plane. So I mean, I don't think there is that I mean comparison which we can draw.
Thank you. Thank you. I think with that, we are already above time. But with that, what an extraordinary conversation we had today. Thank you for a great moderation, Atha. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Dr. Irfan. Thank you, Zishan. Both of you were brilliant, extraordinary presentations, great insights, and a lot of takeaways. I think we have at Voice of Glaciers Foundation, we also learned a lot of things like what we need to do to step up the game, especially what does it mean to increase more citizen engagement in the scientific, with the scientific community, especially in the monitoring work, engaging the citizens in this work. So we'll also reflect on what, initiative that we can take to bridge this gap. But at the same time, just want to make sure that we have started this year, like early kind of last year, the foundation, we are in the early days of our work, setting our, foot on the ground. Continue to look forward to learning from you. I look forward to visiting you in Kashmir and spending more
Certainly,
time
certainly
learning.
most welcome.
Yeah. So look, we will organize the next dialogue focusing on, Northeast India, on the Eastern Himalayas. Also, if any one of you have recommendations, in terms of who should we invite, please reach out. Let us know for that. And if any one of you would like to present something specific around glaciers, reach out. If you have any ideas that you would like to discuss. We are looking forward to have these conversations for collaborations and also just in participation. And ma'am, you have raised your hand, please. Romula ma'am, you are muted. Ma'am, are you speaking? She has left. Oh yeah, no, I think she has left, maybe by mistake. But anyways, we had this fantastic dialogue today, and we look forward to continuing this. We hope to start doing these dialogues locally in the communities. May, maybe in Kashmir also we come and like do these dialogues in communities, engaging more local communities. So yeah, 2026, and then we are excited what's ahead for us. But we want to do a lot more work in collaboration with the scientific community, especially those who are working on the research, and then the adventure community. My own background, and then also how do we drive a lot more funding and resources in supporting the work that glaciologists are also doing. So with that, we continue uh, and to look forward for these collaborations with different organizations. And thank you to all the participants. Thank you to all of you who
Pleasure having me invited here, Anurag. It was good to discuss these scientific problems to people who might not be all glaciologists who are here.
No, you explained it in very simple language. There were few technical bits, but obviously that is important. But it was very well, communicated in a simple language. So thank you. And people have stayed till this time. So really appreciate everyone. And yeah, thank you. I'll let you all go now. But thank you
Thank
once
you.
again, Ishan,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Irfan, and Athar, and to all of you for attending the Seventh Glacier Dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.